Hey, and welcome to Let's Talk Money. I am Money T. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Yes, I am Simply C, and welcome to season 2.
That's what it feels like, right? It has been a minute. So we're going to jump back in and kind of go back into and dig a little deeper into notes. I know some people were really interested in the note business and diversifying that real estate. So we have the note starter with us, Mr. William Smitty Smith.
Hello.
I can't help but notice the sparkle in her eyes when she says,
I know, right?
That's cute.
So if you could please kind of recap for us, kind of go over what a note is for the audience and jump into diving a little deeper into notes.
Sure, no problem. I just want to say that intro never gets old. I love it. New Jack City and y'all talking. I mean, it's just a perfect blend.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So basically what a note is a promissory note. It's a promise to pay. And with the note industry business, you can purchase those notes from either other investors or from banks. And to break it down even more, basically, you are buying contracts. Say, for instance, if you own a home and you're paying your mortgage payments to Chase or whatever bank, our business can buy that note. So I can buy it at a discounted rate, and they will actually switch over from paying the bank to paying me. Mm-hmm. And that's a form of purchasing an asset. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the great thing about purchasing the notes, at least for me, is that there's not a lot of work involved. Mm-hmm. As far as real estate maintenance, you don't have to do any fixing up any toilets or anything like that. So it's like, I always use the example that you never call your bank if something breaks in your home.
Right.
So that's one of the advantages of owning a note, is that you don't have to do any of the maintenance. You just basically sit back and collect payments.
Yeah.
On that.
And
on those notes.
And anybody can.
Yes.
Anybody
anybody can own a note. If you're an investor and you get into the space, you can do that. Okay. You can purchase notes, and it's been going on for years. I don't know if you even remember, people would have signs in their yard that say owner financing or seller financing. It's the same thing. What they do is they own a property, and they'll put that sign in the yard or advertise it, and you go to them and you basically draw up a contract and say, okay, I'm going to put X amount of dollars down, and then I'm going to pay you X amount a month. Mm-hmm. And just the same way as a bank. And the thing about the banks is you have to fit into this bank box. You have to have this credit score. You have to, have this time on the job. So they have a lot of requirements that you have to fit into in order to own a home. And the thing is that you realize a lot of people out here have money, but they don't fit into the bank box. Right. So you can walk into the bank and say, hey, I've got $20,000. I want to buy a house. But still, you have to, if you've got a 500 credit score and you don't meet their requirements, then they won't look at you.
Right.
So that's the good thing about owner financing. Now, with owner financing versus the bank, owner financing, the interest rates can be a little higher. So like currently right now, I think the interest rates are somewhere around 3%. Whatever.
Yeah, 3% or lower.
3% or lower. And that's what you get with the bank. So when you go to a owner, you could be paying in the upwards of 9 or 10%.
Yeah.
So that's the downfall about that. It's just like anything else, the people that don't fit into the bank box are considered a higher risk.
Right.
So with that higher risk comes higher percentage.
Yeah.
Yep. Just like anything else, you're higher risk, then you're going to pay a higher interest rate.
Right.
Yeah.
So if people want to know more about your basic on notes, that note 101, they can pretty much, number one, they can go to YouTube and listen to some of your
some of the videos that I have. You can go to YouTube and just type in note space starter, and I'll pop up, and I've got basic videos on how you can purchase a note. It also goes through tutorials. It has some, investor insights as well that you can go in and just kind of get some basic knowledge.
And then we had you on before, and you kind of gave that basic knowledge, so they can go to at Girls Talk Money
And
and get that first episode of you talking about notes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And also you can go to notestarter.com, click on videos, and it'll take you straight to the YouTube site.
Yeah.
So I'm interested if you think that the note or owner financing particularly is like a higher risk
Well,
of financing.
it is. But then when you create that note, the key to it is how much skin they're going to put in the game. And what I mean by that is how much money they're going to put down. So if you have $100,000 house and you got somebody that's going to come to you and put, 10 or 15 grand down, they're serious, and then you can make your own requirements. And here's another thing about owner financing is you can negotiate. They may come and say, hey, I want 10% down on this $100,000. And they say, well, I may have 8 or 9, so it's up to the owner to make that call, where a bank is stringent. They won't do it. So that, owner finances give you the flexibility of putting that down. So the more money that's down, the more serious the buyer is. And if a buyer comes to you and say, hey, I want to buy your house, and, I don't have any money down, then they're not a good candidate, because it lets you know that, for one, they ain't saving no money.
Right.
To purchase that house. They're not serious. But if they're serious, they're going to put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
And the other part of that is you still own the property.
Yes. Yeah. And you own the property. And with those contracts, depending on how they draw them up, either you can draw what they call contract for deeds, land contracts, or mortgage notes. Like No Starter, we have own mortgage notes and contracts for deeds. Now, the difference is, with a contract for deed, it's more of a stringent contract that if you fail to pay, if you break that contract like within the 30 days or you don't pay, you forfeited it because it's written in the contract. Now, versus a mortgage note like the bank, you get some leeway. It can be written in that contract. And a contract, you can be written up that way anyway, but most contracts for deeds or land contracts is immediately forfeiture, and you can start your forfeiture or foreclosure process.
So like the things that were going on during COVID, when you had somebody that wasn't paying, then how, if they were with the banks, they were giving all this they were giving all this time where they didn't have to pay. Whereas if you, individual, being the bank, it's like, well, now you got to pay.
Right.
Pretty much.
And with that, that was called a forbearance for the federally backed banks. You could apply for it, and basically you could say, I'm apply for the forbearance, and they would stop everything. You wouldn't get charged any interest. I mean, it would stop, and the payments would go to the back of the loan. And after that 3 months, it would just start up like nothing happened. With our space, if you missed a payment, you couldn't apply for forbearance. But what you could do, most lenders in this industry, from what I've learned, is they're not in it to kick people out of their homes.
Right.
First and foremost, because we had a client that was going through some issues as well. And you can do what they call loan modifications or workouts, to where you can go back and get their financials and see where they're at and say, okay, well, we can remodify this loan or remodify this, and you can start paying, instead of $200 a month, you can go down to $150 a month. So there's workout options that can be done. Yeah.
So are there different types of notes, or is it just
Well, yeah, there
a
are.
note is a note?
Well, I mean, there are different types of contracts, and it depends on how they're drawn up, and it varies from state to state. Now, a note can actually go from in different stages. It can go what they call a performing note, to where the person's paying all the time. Okay, like clockwork, they're paying every month, everything is great, and then they have what they call sub-performings, where they could be spotty pays. Miss a payment here, or always late, or it's just not consistent. And then they have non-performing, where they're not paying at all. And the good thing about it, about that, is that, for me, unlike, rental properties where you relying on that, if they're not paying, they're racking up late fees. Or if you want to foreclose on that property, then you can get it. You can actually own the property, because right now I just own the paper. Mm-hmm. And when I say paper, that means a contract. Mm-hmm. And if they don't pay, just like a bank will send you a letter and say, hey, if you don't pay, we're going to foreclose on you. And it's the same thing that we had to go through. I mean, just a case in point, one of the assets that we had, the people went to spotty pay, and then they stopped paying. And they were actually kind of trying to run a game on us and not pay. So we sent what we called a notice of demand. And this was a contract for deeds. So when we sent the notice of demand, it tells you, hey, you need to pay everything up front in 30 days, or you're going to lose your house.
Get out.
Yeah, period.
Get to stepping.
Yeah. And so once that was sent, that was it. Mm-hmm. They actually sent all their money in, and we got the payment.
And why?
Why?
Yeah. Why you have to go to that?
Yeah, I mean, they were doing stuff like, we were sending things saying, hey, let's work it out. We were sending them financial packets. They weren't signing it. They also sent a check in and didn't sign the check. So I'm like, okay, you got, y'all playing games. So we
playing booty games.
Yeah,
right.
We can already stop the games. So once we sent that letter, the next 3 or 4 weeks, boom, here comes the money.
Wow.
And it always doesn't work out like that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people really can't pay.
Right.
And my thing is, I knew that they were playing games, because if you can't pay, you're going to send everything that you can and say, hey, look, here's all my documentation. Right. I can't pay.
Right.
So at that point, I knew that they weren't
just out buying Gucci or something.
Yeah.
And
then I know the other thing, too, that you like about it is you don't have to do it. There's a servicer that does it.
That's correct. Everything is ran through the servicer, even the attorney. So, I don't have to really do nothing but just kind of email communicate. Mm-hmm. Hey, what's going on? Let me know what's going on. And they handle the process.
I did have one question that came up as you were talking. Do you guys report to the credit bureau?
No, there's no reporting to the credit bureau. Now, there are some servicers that do report to the credit bureau, but for the most part, no, there's no reporting to the credit bureau.
Okay. So
that's a good question.
I know that different people have asked questions about notes, and then how much money is needed to even get in the game. So can you talk on that, like how much money is needed to get in the game, and how can somebody say they just have like $5,000 or something? How can they get in the game?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that you can actually get into the game. Let's just take 5,000, and I'll work some other ways to doing it as well. But say you've got 5,000, and you can take that money to someone that owns a note, and you can buy what they call a partial of the note. So for example, if I own a note and say I've got it for 20 years, and someone comes to me with $5,000 and says, hey, I want to make some money. I want to make some money on my $5,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what we could do is do a partial, and they could buy a portion of those payments. So if I've got the note for 20 years, which is 240 months, then I can say I'll take that $5,000. Of course, the interest is calculated. Say, we calculated at 8-9% or whatever. Then they hand me the $5,000, and then I calculate whatever it takes to make their 8% over that time. So at that time, they start collecting those payments. And I've already collected the $5,000 on the note that I've purchased. And now they will collect X number of payments so that they get their return on their investment over those months. Now, you don't actually own the note. Let's just start. Because after you start making and you get that return on your interest, you do it again. You just rinse and repeat. You rinse and repeat. And once you get enough to buy your own note, I was looking the other day, there was a note for $10,000. So, there's your start. So it really depends on how, where you can find them, because, they're out there.
Okay. So can I stop you right there? It was a note for $10,000. What was it for?
It was for a home. Now you have to remember that it's about the unpaid balance. Okay. So if somebody has only $10,000 left on their note, like if you're trying to pay your house off and it's $10,000, that whatever circumstances that the note holder has, whatever they want to sell it, that's on them. So you can find unpaid balances as low as $10,000. And that's where you can get your start, or you can work with somebody to buy a partial to get started. So
with a $10,000 note, how would I make money?
So it's the same thing. So the one I was looking at in particular, the unpaid balance was $10,000 on the note, and the house was worth like $70,000. So you can go in and bid on that. You don't have to pay the whole $10,000 because I don't have that many payments left. So you can bid like maybe $7,000. You buy the note. Now you start collecting those payments over time. So whatever the remaining payments are. So say if it's $300 over the next, 36 months, that's how you collect your money. That's how you start building your capital, start getting return on your interest. So once that's done and you have that, whatever that margin is that you pay, because you've already paid less than what the unpaid balance is, and the property is worth $70,000. So say, for instance, which most likely may not happen, that they don't pay, but it's happened and they don't pay, you can get that property. So you've turned $7,000 into 70, or what it's worth right at that point, because you may not even want to fix it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. You can.
I don't even know what I was talking about.
My bad.
No, we're fine. We're still talking notes.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about just the 5K portion, and then there's another thing that you can do, which is hypothecation. And with that, say you don't even want to be involved in the note business at all. You just want to take your $5,000 and make some money on it. So what you do is you can hand $5,000 to an investor, and what they can do is just start giving you monthly payments back on that $5,000 based over a certain amount of time. So the difference between buying a partial and a hypothecation is a partial, you're actually getting those payments back from the mortgage, from the service to the servicer. A hypothecation is that I give you money, and then I have a document that's saying, hey, I get you have $5,000, and here's the real estate that it's backed by. And then you just start collecting monthly payments over a period of time. The interest payments, the interest only payments. So for example, if I give you $5,000 and the interest is 10% a year, that's $500. So you divided that by 12, whatever that is, I'm going to give you those payments to equal up to $500 for that course of the year. So what's 12 divided by 500?
Turn your phone on and use the calculator. Sure.
So just say 60? It's $100 a month. You're going to get $100 a month from 50? That high.
55? No.
Yeah, $55 a month. Yeah, there we go. $55 a month. every month until you fulfill that hypothecation agreement. Okay, now the difference with the partial is you were collecting $300 a month from the actual payment when you buy the partial. You just take over the payments and you start collecting that exact payment from the note holder.
So what is it, like a shorter time or something?
It all depends on what the partial and how much money is and how much of the interest rate is. Okay. Does that make sense?
I'm sure you put it in a computer and it calculates what that number is going to be. But if you're depending on me,
right? But okay, so let's just take the numbers out and just be even simpler. So with the hypothecation, you are investing money at a certain interest rate and at a certain time. And then you get your return on your investment, whatever interest rate that is, over that period of time. Now, with the partial, you start collecting the house payments for whatever time that you've done. And you actually are a note holder at that point with a hypothecation. You can hypothecate with anything. It doesn't even have to be a note. Say if I gave you, $10,000 and I said, I want 10% on my money. You can take that $10,000 and put it in your business, or you can go buy whatever. But per our agreement, you're going to pay me back monthly payments for my 10 grand at that interest rate over that period of time. You can hypothecate anything, because the person that is doing the hypothecation just wants their money back.
Just give me
just give me my interest payments back. And it's just interest only. And then at the end of the term, I get my full, or you get your full money back. Light bulb. Bing, 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 bing. Versus with a partial, you pay your money in and then you get those interest payments back, whatever that period of time is.
Got you.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah. So, there's lots of ways of making money. And the thing of it is, you can even do it with $1,000. You can do it with $500. You just need to make sure that when you loan out that money, just like these lending places, that there's some collateral. That's the key, is the collateral. It's like you go to these loan places, give me your car title. That's the same thing.
Stay away from them, by the way.
Yes. Yes, because they are a ripoff.
Yes.
Totally. So, hey, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about too, or that we talk about sometimes, and that is buying an asset to pay for a liability. So, buying assets to pay off liabilities. What you got?
Well, one of the things about buying an asset to pay off a liability, let me back up. Most of the consumers, what they do is they buy liabilities.
Right.
Based off the time that they work. So currently you work, you put time in for money for your job. And what we do is we buy stuff that depreciates. And what should be happening is that you buy assets to pay for those luxuries or liabilities because the asset keeps producing.
Right.
So, for example, say if I wanted to go out and buy a car, most people will go, me included, I've done it before, go out and buy a car for 30 grand and you start paying, X amount a month for that car. Why not buy a house? And that rent will pay $700 a month. Now we're talking rent. Okay? We're not talking notes. But you can still do the same thing because it's still passive income. But that $700 a month can be even a partial of that car payment. So you may not take the whole $700, but it is a partial because that asset is a gift that keeps on giving. Once you pay for that car, it's depreciating every year that you buy it and you have nothing. And then you go out and buy another car, which is depreciating. You buy you a house or you buy you a note, you got $600 or $700 a month that keeps coming in. It never stops. Right. And then you can take a portion of that and say, hey, I want to take even $200 of that and put it towards my car note. That way you have something that keeps producing. So you always want to buy something that produces income.
Yeah, and it's somebody that I follow or had listened to, and they were talking about, they were in real estate also, and they were talking about flipping a house to purchase a liability. Oh, I want this. They wanted a new, I don't know if it was a boat or a car, but it was one of those. Well, they wouldn't and flipped the house and purchased it.
And buy what you want off the spread of the asset, like you said, with the fix and flip.
And that's what they chose to do to get their liability. But most definitely, and we don't think that way. Or whatever type of investment, if we can do it off of that investment and purchase it off of the dividend or whatever. You know, there nowadays is so many different ways to invest money and reap the benefits of dividends.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of us changing our mindset about making money and stop just trading time for a paycheck. Because that's what we do.
Making money and spending money. Like, change your mindset on even how you're spending money.
And allowing our money to work for us while we sleep.
That passive income.
Girl. That passive income, yes.
So one thing that I'm really interested in, and we talked as we prepped for this session today, is the note business versus purchasing real estate, like brick and mortar. Can you share?
Yeah, sure.
Benefits?
And especially in today's times, with the real estate market being so high and so competitive, you know, as an investor, you know, especially a newbie investor trying to get into purchase property is so overpriced right now, you know, and the bidding that goes on and the low inventory that's happening. It's competitive. And so for me, the note business is a lot different. Even with the skyrocketing of the real estate market, the note unpaid balances on these properties stay the same. They don't go up, they stay the same. So for me, it's an advantage that if I want to purchase a note, that I can pay under that unpaid balance to purchase that. And the good thing with the skyrocketing real estate is that it's still going up if you take the property back. So, for instance, if I buy a note for $20,000 and the unpaid balance is $25,000, that's the key. You always want to buy under what the unpaid balance is. And that the unpaid balance, the UPB, is what the customer owes left on the house. Say the house is worth $100,000, and with today's market, it could shoot up $20,000.
Right.
So that makes it good for the note holder.
Yeah.
Right.
So to me, that's an advantage. I mean, and then another advantage for me is strictly passive income. You know, we talked about this on the first session that I don't want to fix any roofs. I don't want to fix no toilets. Don't call me. Just send me my money.
Right.
My money, man. and that's it. And that's the beautiful thing about it. And I mean, the flip side is that you don't collect the same amount as you do on rent. But I don't have to pay taxes. I don't have to pay insurance. I don't have to do any of that.
Love it.
Taxes meaning the property taxes.
The property taxes.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Now,
Love
you do
it.
have to pay taxes on your income, people. Capital gains.
Yeah.
Dang, that's what's up. I really like that. I got $5,000.
I'll take it.
So even with that, when people approach you with that and say, "Hey, I have $5,000 with that," would you just take that and connect other people that have a smaller amount to invest and just like piece things together.
Correct. And you can do partnerships. Partnerships is a great way to get in the note game as well. You can go 50-50 with a partner, or you can go, if you got 3 people, y'all can go 3 and purchase one asset. And the cool thing about it is the way the partnership agreement is, the servicer will cut that check to all 3 of the
that's good to know.
note holders. So if we get $500 a month, I mean, somebody's gonna get shorted a penny or two, but you get that 3 or 2 investors, and that's the great thing, and then split it up. So yeah, and then like for instance, we have I'm in a more of a hypothecation with a mobile home park in Alabama, and it's like 8 of us. So I've got a certain percentage in, somebody else has a certain percentage in, and it's all written up into the contract. Like I get an X percent, and then the servicer every 3 months, they have it set up to where they do quarterly payments versus monthly payments, to where I get a check in the mail for X amount of dollars over that quarter, So there's lots of ways, and it's just a matter of finding and connecting the right people.
So you could go and find a $60,000 note, and get you 3 or 4 people together to have that smaller amount and connect them all. And okay.
And the key is rinsing and repeating, because a couple of them, you can be in them for 2 years or 3 years, whatever, because you want to make sure that the note is seasoned. And when you sell it, when I say seasoned, that means that they're properly paying.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people look at the pay history when they buy it. They want to know the pay history, because if the pay history is spotty, then the price of it goes down because it's more of a risk. Pay history is great, then you can,
sell it.
Yeah, you can negotiate a little bit better for that price. So, I'm into a couple of agreements where, at the end of 2 years, we want to get out and, get our money in and start over and do it again.
So you really need to know what you're doing before you kind of get into.
You definitely have to know what you're doing. And the thing that I got started in is there's groups. I belong to a Zoom meeting group that we meet every single Saturday. And there's like 80 something people in this group, and it's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, we really literally have people in there with $1,000 or 10 million bucks. They're all sitting in this group, and it's a wealth of knowledge. And that's kind of how I got started. I found somebody by YouTubing, reached out to him. He's a great guy, and I started with him. Started my first note with him, and he's kind of been my mentor. But I've kind of branched out now to get everybody's different, aspects. You always want to go past and look at different mentors, because they always have different wealths of information. And that's kind of how you get started. And I suggest, if you're interested, just start doing YouTube videos. Just start looking at YouTube videos. Go to my page, NoStarter.com, and go to the videos, or go to the YouTube page at No Starter, and just look at some of the basic videos, and then reach out from there. Type, and then those videos, you always have other people that's related, and you just start clicking on them and just start following people. Yeah.
Yep. A free university.
Yep.
Yes.
Don't.
That is what YouTube is.
And then Facebook groups. I'm on like 6 or 7 Facebook groups, and if I've got a question, the other day I went out there and I was asking about contract for deed situation, and typed it in, and boom, I get information. Now you have to also be careful with Facebook, because a lot of people say stuff and they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And so you have to take what it is for a grain of salt. So some of the things you do have to consult lawyers on, or you consult multiple people, but the end all is always lawyers.
And I know you do have to be careful, because you have run into people that you've asked questions from there, and they come back with no answer, or things didn't add up. Yeah.
And then again, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you said something that Is there anything else on that before I move?
I don't know.
Okay.
You can move on.
So you said something that made me think about a question that took me back to the servicing part of it. The people paying, they're doing all the work basically. Is there a fee for that?
Yes, they pay. It ranges from 25. It could be up to 100 a month. If you have a customer that's paying and no problem, all they're sending their checks in, then I just pay $25 a month. But once a note goes non-performing and they have to do more work to get that person to pay, then you may have to pay a little bit extra because they're putting in more work to get your money, which is totally fine by me because I don't have to talk to them.
Exactly.
So I'll pay $50, a month.
Not to deal with that.
To deal with that.
Yeah.
Can you touch on brokering and wholesaling notes?
Yeah, and that's another way to get into the note business as well. It's just like wholesaling homes. There's a lot of wholesalers out here today that what they do is they wholesale. They find buyers and sellers. You can do the same thing with notes. You can find people that are selling. You can find people that are buying. You hook those two people together and you can either make a fee. What a lot of the brokers do is they make a fee off the UPB, the unpaid balance. So if the unpaid balance is $40,000 and they're charging a 1% fee, then they get that 1% fee. And usually it ranges anywhere from 1% to 3%. And all they're doing is just connecting people. And that's it. There's no paperwork involved or whatever. Now, if you are wanting to broker notes, brokering notes means that you actually purchase that note, bring it into your portfolio, and then you look to sell it. So you try to get it as low as possible to UPB, and then you try to make that. You make bigger spreads by bringing it into your portfolio. Say if I bought something for $20,000 and maybe I negotiated all the way down to $20,000 and the UPB is $30,000, and I go to somebody else and say, hey, I'll sell it to you for $25,000. I made that. I brokered $5,000. Okay. So there's two different ways of doing it. Now it is a lot of work. You have to find buyers. You have to find sellers, and it's a lot of work. Just like wholesaling houses, it's a lot of work.
I was going to ask.
You have to find these people.
So is it just as hard as it is for wholesaling houses as it is for wholesaling notes?
Well, for me, I would say, physically, you have to, with wholesaling houses, you have to go out and find these houses. You have to drive, they say driving for dollars. With notes, I can go to like the courthouses and I can look up contract for deeds or something like that, land contracts. And I go through there and I do more computer work to find these people that are maybe wanting to sell that note. And then you find that buyer and hook them together, and then you write up that and make whatever you decide to charge. But yeah, it's just different type of work. Yes, it's hard computer work versus the leg work.
Time consuming.
Yeah, exactly. It's time consuming.
Okay.
Very.
Let's see. We got some more questions.
If you don't, I've got a couple things that I wanted to talk.
I love no starter. He be having a mouthful
yes.
of information. No, you go right ahead, Pumpkin.
So one of the key things about buying a note is doing your due diligence. When I say your due diligence is that you have to research extensively that note. You just can't go in and say, hey, I'm going to buy a note, put your money down, and that's it. It's just like anything else when you're buying a house. What do you do when you buy a house? You bring an inspector in. They inspect the plumbing, they inspect this, they inspect electrical, they go through everything. That's the same thing with buying a note. You have to inspect the actual contract, and you have to do your due diligence on the real estate itself, because you could purchase a note, and it's happened before. I've heard people happen. They buy the note, nice little pretty picture on Google, but
it's not what it looks like now.
It's not even there.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. The property is not there. So people have purchased notes without doing their check.
Wow.
And it's not there. So that's one of the key things is that make sure the property's there, make sure taxes is paid on it, make sure you have insurance on it. And with insurance, one of the things that one of my checklists is when I talk to the servicer, when they do have insurance, that I'm listed as the loss payee. So I'm the first one to get paid. So if the house burns down, they know to send the check to note starter and not to, the borrower. So that's another due diligence point. And make sure that the taxes are paid, because you don't want your property to go to the tax sale.
Right.
Because if it goes to the tax sale, now the key is that you're in the first lien position, so you're going to get paid anyway, but that's not your goal, because all you're getting paid is unpaid balance. You want to keep the property and have them to keep paying. So, I mean, that's the whole deal. You want to keep getting your money. So you will get paid as the first lien holder, but who wants to go through the tax, sale with your property? So just make sure that the taxes and stuff is there. Another thing is, check the crime in the area. Check the borrower to see, if they've got any judgments, any lawsuits, or, anything that's pending with the borrower itself. Check the seller. Check the seller who's selling the note. Make sure that they don't have any outstanding liens on them, because if they've got outstanding liens on them, if they go and visit their LLC and they start grabbing some stuff, they may want to take that property that seller has.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So it's just a lot of checks and balances that you have to go through to make sure that note is solid. And not to mention is the contract itself. Make sure that that's legitimate. Make sure the paperwork is set up, because there's been certain things where I've gone and checked and it says that, perfect example, we had one of the notes that was in Alabama. The note was set up where the guy was paying $650 a month. So they were sending the $650 a month in like clockwork. He was under the assumption that he was paying escrow with his note. Escrow meaning having taxes, insurance taken out. But the contract was set up, there was no escrow coming out. So the taxes wasn't getting paid, insurance wasn't getting paid. So we had to put what they call forced placed insurance on it, because we found out that, okay, this house ain't been getting insured. So we stuck forced placed insurance on it, and then which in turn made that person get insurance, because if you stick forced placed insurance on it, I'm doing that to protect my investment.
Right.
Okay. I may also have to pay the taxes if it's not an escrow, because you can buy a note just like the one we have in Alabama, where the escrow is not in there. So we actually had to pay 1 year of the taxes. But the thing is we just stick it onto the loan so we can get it, but we're still protecting our assets. So that's one of the things about checking. So it's always good to do it. And another thing about checking on your assets too is if you're in that town, drive by it, make sure it's there, Or if somebody lives in that area, say, hey, can you go over there and drive by? Or even a realtor, you can call them up and say, hey, this is, note starter, and I'm wanting to check on this house over here that I'm thinking about buying, or that, I want you to check on. And you can throw them $25, $30 for their problem, because you remember that $25, $30 is a great investment by checking on your asset.
Right.
So it's always good you have to go through your notes and do your due diligence. And then, listen to some of the top professionals, even the mentors that I've run into. They made mistakes.
Oh yeah.
They made mistakes and things have happened, and that's how you learn.
That's how you learn.
But things will happen. So
there was one other thing we wanted you to respond to, and that was really quickly. If someone comes into money and pays a property off early, do you still make money? Does that cut away from the money that you've made?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the number 3s on the profitability list, because if they pay it off, then that means you're not getting those monthly payments in that you're seeking. And it also depends on when they pay it off. So if you come into a note early, because you always have to remember that you purchase a note under the unpaid balance. So using round numbers again, if the unpaid balance is 10,000 and then I buy it for 8, and then in another month, they say, hey, I'm going to pay it off. But you just made $2,000 in that month, right? So that's a good thing. But your whole goal was to get those payments over the course of years. And then another option is, say you buy a note, they pay for it for 5 years, and then they pay it off. Now you've collected payments over 5 years, and their unpaid balances, kind of barely moved the needle.
Barely moved.
And now you're collecting that money from the UPB plus the money that you collected over those 60 months.
That's what's up. Well, thank you so much for all this valuable information. I'm just like sitting on the end of my chair. Go ahead and tell people how to get in touch with you or find out more about notes. We've mentioned it a few times, but go ahead.
Is time up already?
Yes, it is.
Oh, man. Okay, so you can visit notestarter.com. And there's a place where you can either schedule a quick 15-minute session for free. We could talk about, what your interests are. Also, you can reach me at wsmith@notestarter.com. Also on YouTube at Notestarter for more videos.
And I am Money T, and today's affirmation is, I am a powerful and resourceful creator. As you know, I am a travel advisor, and my website is priceless-destinations.com. And be sure to check out my travel store. It's not only a travel store, but also you can put in your travel destination. It'll give you the weather. It has an ultimate packing list that you can pull up. Also, I want you guys to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, your money mindset matters.
And I am Simply C. You can find me at Simply Custom Wood Designs on Facebook and Instagram, Simply Cupcakes on Facebook, and check out advocatingdaughters.com. Guys, we appreciate you joining us today. You can also find us at Let's Talk Money on Facebook, and you can listen to us every Monday on the 8th.
That is 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
We are out.
We out.